President Bongbong Marcos has defended the Maharlika Investment Fund, which he described as a means to boosting investments.
This was the chief executive's first time addressing the proposed sovereign wealth fund as he made his way to Belgium for the ASEAN-EU summit. Camille Samonte with the big story.
President Bongbong Marcos has spoken up about the Maharlika Investment Fund for the first time. The president believes that this will help the country secure more investment.
I wouldn't have brought it up otherwise. No, it's very clear that we need added investment. This is just another way to get there.
En route to Brussels for the ASEAN-EU commemorative summit, I asked President Marcos if he thinks the country is on the right track in coming up with a sovereign wealth fund. State insurer GSIS and SSS were recently removed as contributors to the investment fund, following pushback from some business groups and experts. This is what he had to say.
Well, we're just doing the regular process of looking at the bill. Well, not me. It's this, the legislature. So let them do their jobs. Para gawin nilang perfect.
President Marcos also called on the public to hold off judgment until amendments to the bill have been finalized.
Let's not debate until we see the final form, because we could be debating about provisions that will no longer exist. So, antayin natin kung anong gawin ng legislature.
President Marcos arrived in Brussels at around 10 a.m. Philippine time. Included in his agenda in Belgium is to tackle the issue of alleged deficiencies among Filipino seafarers. This is after the country failed to pass the evaluation of the European Maritime Safety Agency for the last 16 years. Some 50,000 seafarers working in European vessels are reportedly at risk of losing their jobs if the Philippines fails to pass the standards set by the EMSA.
Well, it's not something you can debate about. You comply. We will have to comply so that we will be accredited.
Marcos Jr. will also bring up issues on human rights concern in his visit to Brussels. Recall that the EU has condemned the alleged human rights abuses in the Philippines, particularly those committed during the drug war campaign of former President Rodrigo Duterte. For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
More amendments have been made to the bill creating the country's sovereign wealth fund. Here's what we know. Fresh amendments include renaming the Sovereign Wealth Fund back to Maharlika Investment Fund or MIF. 20% of the fund's profit will go to social welfare projects. Penal provisions for violations of the MIF have also been set. Proponents of the measure have earlier decided to drop pension funds as sources. Instead, central bank profits will be used as seed money for the fund. And instead of the president, the finance chief will become the chairperson of the MIF board of directors. House lawmakers are eyeing to pass the bill on second reading before the holiday break.
Bigyan natin ng chance. Kami naman sa committee, napakinggan din namin lahat. Ang pakiusap ko lang sa lahat ng tao, pakinggan natin yung lahat ng sides. Kami naman po sa Committee on Banks, naniniwala kami na malaki po yung matutulong netong Maharlika Investment Fund, Maharlika Investment Corporation sa ating bansa.
Now, to talk to us about the proposed Maharlika Investment Fund, we have retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio over the phone. Good evening, Justice Carpio. Welcome to the big story.
Good evening. Good evening to your viewers.
All right. First, Justice Carpio, what do you make of these changes here, these amendments, at least to the Maharlika Investment Fund, from funding sources? At the same time, they're now being more clear as to where the profit will go. At the same time, they're putting some penal provisions as well here. Does this in any way make the MIF more palatable, so to speak?
Well, the new changes have addressed the constitutional issues that I've raised, no? And they have cleaned it up. They have reconciled it with the other laws. And so I don't see any constitutional issue anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's now a matter of soundness. I mean, because they practically solved the legal issues. It's now a question of whether the BSP should give all its dividends, 100% of its dividends starting on the fourth year, to the Maharlika Investment Corporation, because the BSP is required to give all its dividends, 100% of its dividends, to the Maharlika Investment Corporation on the fourth year, no? So that means that none of these dividends will go to the operations of the government, because normally these go to the general fund of the National Treasury, from where the Congress will get the funds to finance the General Appropriations Act, to pay for the salary of the government employees, to maintain the roads and bridges, etc. No. So that will be taken out of the funds to finance the General Appropriations Act, which means that the government will have to borrow to finance the gap, because let's say it's about 20 billion a year that should have gone to the general fund. Instead of going to the general fund, it goes now to the Maharlika Investment Corporation. So government will have to borrow to fill up that gap. So is that wise? So what I'm objecting here is it has no termination date. The BSP is required to fork over all its dividends to the Maharlika Investment Corporation starting the fourth year forever. There's no cut-off date. So I think there should be a cut-off date. I mean, it cannot be forever. They should decide how many years, because the Maharlika Investment Corporation should not rely on dividends from the BSP forever. I mean, the BSP will provide the seed capital, and that should be it. Not providing annually seed capital. There should be a cap to it. So that's the only thing left that I'm worried here, because BSP is required to fork over all its dividends forever to the Maharlika Investment Corporation. I think that's too much. There should be a limit.
Speaking of workarounds and the legality of the bill, there are fears that even with doing away with the GSIS and the SSS as a fund pool, that there are possible workarounds with it, specifically with the provision allowing additional funding from investments and private corporations. Is there merit to that concern?
Well, the GSIS and SSS are no longer required to provide the seed capital. They are free to invest if they want, and that means, and they can also buy debt securities of the Maharlika Investment Corporation. But these debt securities are convertible, can be converted to equity. So GSIS or SSS can purchase the debt instrument of Maharlika Investment Corporation, and then later on convert that to equity. So it's a backdoor. We're going back to the old bill. So I think it should be clear that they should not be equity holder at all at any time.
Now,
so because that will be a backdoor to restoring the equity contribution of GSIS and SSS, no? And the other thing there is the Maharlika Investment Corporation is authorized to borrow money from GFIs, government financial institutions, other than GSIS and SSS, and to sustain their operations and for the government to guarantee the repayment of these debt instruments. But, who will guarantee? If it's a government guarantee, it's actually the taxpayer who will pay, who will guarantee, because at the end of the day, government will get the money from the taxes.
Okay.
So it's the taxpayer who are actually making this guarantee. So I think, it doesn't involve the legality anymore, but it involves the soundness, whether that's sound or not.
like what you were mentioning, Justice Carpio, I mean, for you at least, all the issues involving constitutionality have been addressed with the latest amendments here on the MIF bill. But given that as well, earlier you were pointing out the possibility of, questions on the BSP's involvement here, that there should be a timeline here. Should things go awry, what's the worst case scenario here?
Well, there is no constitutional issue involved anymore. So if you want to question this in the Supreme Court, it has to be on a constitutional issue. So it's now addressed to the soundness of this structure that BSP will continuously every year fork over its dividends to the Maharlika Investment Corporation. We all know, by changing the name Maharlika Wealth Fund to Maharlika Investment Corporation, that's an admission that the funds are not surplus revenues of the government. These are surplus revenues of the bank, but that's not of the BSP, but not the surplus revenue of the national government. That's very clear.
Right.
So this is not a wealth fund. I mean, the fact that it's a Maharlika Investment Corporation means the funds are not necessarily surplus funds, and we don't have surplus funds. So this could be borrowed funds, and that's the other thing there. I mean,
Right.
Why borrow for your capital? I mean, you should, if you want to put up a corporation, normally you don't use borrowed money for the capital because you have a carrying cost, no?
All right.
So it's addressed the soundness now. It's addressed the soundness.
All right. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the Maharlika Investment Fund. That was retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio.